My name is James Holmes. I am an expressionist artist with a studio that's based in the Art District on Santa Fe in Denver, Colorado. I primarily paint utilizing acrylics on canvas or on board, but from time to time we'll dabble with mixed media. All my expressions are in a pure abstract form. I tend to really lean towards bold colors, and every one of my paintings tells an internal story. I believe I paint from the inside out, meaning that everything that I experience in my external life, so people that I have relationships with, people that are in my circle professionally, people that I admire, people that I read about, people who I encounter and have conversations with, past experiences certainly, and future hopes and dreams all find their way into these expressions that I make onto the canvas utilizing my painting method. What I tend to do when I paint, whether it's here in my studio in Denver or in the basement of my music studio at home, I tend to really get to the studio and spend a little bit of time just being in the space. I rarely come in and right away get to work. I usually find that I do much better in kind of clearing my mind and kind of getting into the flow of creativity if I spend a little bit of time in the studio, not actually working, not actually doing work as an artist, but maybe it's cleaning the studio or rearranging the colors of the tubes of paint in my storage drawers, or cleaning brushes, or sorting out canvases, or sitting and looking at work, whatever happens to be the case on a given day. Then once I get to a place where I feel like I'm really ready to create, I always paint to music. And the music I paint to can be literally anything. It can be something like Tibetan singing bowls, Tibetan chant music. It can be Pearl Jam, if that's not from one end of the spectrum to the other. Classical music, grunge rock I've painted to at times, R&B, just a variety of musical influences, always in the background, always dependent upon what my mood is on a given day, and not something that's so overbearing that it really ends up impacting the expression of the work. But I love music, and having that as part of my environment in the studio is very important to me. I typically, as I mentioned, paint with acrylic paints, and so based on what I'm feeling in a given day in the studio, I'll start with 3 or 4 colors on my palette, always mixing the colors on the surface of the painting. So it's very rare that I'll do a mixing of colors on a palette. Typically I'll take the painting paints from the tube to my palette, to my canvas, and then do a lot of blending and mixing and darkening and lightening tones on the canvas. It just seems to really fit my method of expression a lot better than doing those as 2 separate actions in my method of painting. I do tend to paint a complete painting in one sitting typically, although if I'm working with a larger canvas, which I do quite often, sometimes up to 48 by 60, so 4 foot by 5 foot canvases. Those sometimes will take 2 or 3 sessions depending upon which method I'm utilizing to create a painting. The 2 primary methods that I utilize are a good old paintbrush and palette knives. And I love painting with palette knives. I love the raw expression from the palette to the canvas, to seeing the outcome that I feel like I can achieve. And there are times when the expression feels like it needs to be a softer, more direct outcome of utilizing a paintbrush. Rarely do I blend the 2, though. Typically, or usually, it's going to be either one or the other. When I finish with a painting, I typically walk away from it. I don't tend to sit and try to interpret what the painting's intended to be or what the expression was that came from me, because I don't have any preconceived ideas going into it. If I were a figurative painter or a landscape painter, I would have a very clear idea of what it is that I want to achieve as an outcome. But being that I paint from the inside out, it's all a matter of manifestation of the moment, and the influence of the music, the colors on the palette, and the technique that I feel most driven to utilize has everything to do with what the outcome is of the painting. I find that I appreciate the painting best if I walk away from it. And if I come back the next day, when I used to paint primarily at home, I would call it meeting the painting in the morning, because I'd usually paint late at night. I'd shut off the lights, and then in the morning I'd come down with my coffee and sit in front of it for 20 or 30 minutes and just try to feel into what I believe I was intending to express the night before, and looking into the painting to see what's in the painting, whether it's figures or expressions of colors in a certain way that might be meaningful to me, or if I could recognize the voice of the inspiration for it. That's usually where that occurs. In my studio setting here in Denver, it might be that I walk away from the painting and I'm back in 2 or 3 days. But the process is still the same. I come back to it, sitting with it, observing it, feeling into it, and trying to understand what the expression was intended to be is a really satisfying part of my personal process. There is no predominant colors that I typically paint with. I'll get sometimes into a rhythm with a certain palette, but what I end up doing is oftentimes dictated by so many different circumstances or influences or inspirational impulse that it really can be anything, any combination of any given day that I come in to paint. I show my work primarily at the Veterans Arts Council Gallery that is located in this art district on Santa Fe in Denver. You can see an exhibition of my paintings there. I do have additional shows occurring through the course of the year. I am opening a show on the 7th of July at the Parker Adventist Hospital's Healing Gallery. That show will be installed for 3 months in the months of July, August, and September, and it is a one-artist show in the Healing Gallery there. There will be other opportunities that will come up as we go into late 2020 and into 2021, and I'll be sure to post about those on my website at jamesholmesstudio.com, as well as on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. Both of those can be found at either Facebook at James Holmes Studio or Instagram at James Holmes Studio. And I'm always accessible in terms of having open gallery hours or studio hours on weekends, and I post those opportunities when they become available. And I certainly would invite you, whether it be to come down in person to see the work, to go out to one of my shows to see the work. The opportunity to visit with you is always appreciated. And if you want to connect, if you're not in Colorado and you want to connect through my website or through social media, certainly welcome the opportunity to do that as well. Thanks for giving me a little bit of your time. Hope you explore the work and reach out to me if there's any questions you have. And certainly my work's available to be acquired if you choose to begin collecting. I appreciate it. You have a blessed rest of your day.